Okay, great. In that case, plaintiff, you mentioned you had some housekeeping matters that you'd like to go over.
Yes, for my first appearances, I'm Eric Love. I'm here with my co-counsel, Ms. Dooley, on behalf of the plaintiff, Jordan Street. Secondly, Your Honor, we do want to draw the court's attention to pretrial order section 3D. There are some exhibits that have been pre-entered into evidence, namely 16, 17, and 21. We just want to draw the court's attention to that. That is our expert's report, CV, as well as a weather report. Prior to today's trial, we were also going to work out with counsel that we were going to pre-admit exhibit 3, 14, and 15 as well.
Okay, hold up. All right. I'm actually going to ask if you can move closer to the mic. I'm having a tough time getting you through the computer.
Is that better?
That is better, actually. All right. So, yes, I am aware of the pretrial order that admits 16, 17, 18, 19, and 21. So those are already admitted. And you are further saying that y'all have reached an agreement to admit what exhibits again?
Exhibit 3, Your Honor, which is a photograph of Gordy Street, the decedent, as well as exhibits 14 and 15, which are a toxicology report and an autopsy report.
Okay, and no objection to those exhibits, defense?
No, Your Honor. We agree to these at pretrial.
I just wanted to double check. In that case, exhibits 3, 14, and 15 are admitted.
Your Honor, we also were able to work out an agreement that would exclude exhibit 12 from evidence.
Okay, so you are excluding exhibit 12? That is the agreement, defense?
Yes, Your Honor. We have no objections to the exclusion of exhibit 12.
Okay.
Exhibit 12 is the note that was recovered by.
That's fine. Okay, then exhibit 12 is excluded.
I would like to invoke the rule again, sequestration rule 615.
We will constructively invoke the rule.
That's right.
Your Honor, may I be heard on this portion?
Sure.
Your Honor, I just want to make it clear that Coach Taylor is under 615A a natural party, and we ask that he not be excluded from today's proceedings.
Yes.
Your Honor, with that, we have no other objections to excluding other witnesses.
Right.
And then finally, Your Honor, this is the first time in front of you and as well as in Zoom court, at least for me. So I just ask that at any point, any of your fellow members of the bench who are not on the screen aren't able to see an exhibit or myself or any of the witnesses, that they just stop us per Your Honor's instruction and let us know before we continue.
Yeah, so they have the ability to message me, and I've got that messaging screen up, so they can always message me if they're having a tough time seeing or hearing something, and I can wave. I think we're trying to limit the number of people who are on video at a time.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that?
We just have two. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
With that, we just have two substantive motions when Your Honor's ready.
Okay. I'm going to let you know you have 2 minutes left for your pretrial matters.
That's Your Honor. So the first motion, just to give a little context, is this is a wrongful death case. Rory Street was killed on a soccer field when the defendant, Coach Reese Taylor, ordered him through a series of drills in 103-degree weather that day, with no breaks, no shade, no water. Our first motion is to exclude an opinion by a trainer, Jesse Merriweather, who was present that day. He gives an opinion that Coach Taylor's discipline of Rory Street was appropriate and reasonable. We move to exclude that improper opinion under Rule 702.
Okay, 1 second. Any response, defense?
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to actually go into this opinion by Jess Merriweather, for she is qualified under 702. As you know, Your Honor, under Federal Rules of Evidence 702, you just need the sufficient knowledge, training, and experience in the field that is being talked about in order to have an opinion. And Ms. Merriweather is, in fact, qualified to make this opinion. If I may make a brief point, within her deposition, she talked about the knowledge of attending Texas A&M, how she received training in physical training as well as sports training, and has worked as an athletic trainer at the Waco High School for some time. Additionally, Your Honor, she has the knowledge and the experience. She has attended most practices, if not all practices, with Coach Taylor, has seen Coach Taylor's abilities as well as other coaches' abilities at Waco High, and can give this opinion with her sufficient knowledge, training, and experience, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if I can hear it briefly.
Yeah.
Your Honor, there's no methodology which is required under 702. There's no reliable principles and method employed by this witness to give an expert opinion, which is also part of the requirements of 702.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grant a motion in limine on the issue. Defense, you have the ability to go into, if you can lay a predicate to appropriately introduce that opinion, then feel free to do so. You can attempt to lay the foundation for that, and you can renew your objection at that time, plaintiff. We'll go from there. Okay, you said you had two motions. You have 1 minute left to make your other one.
We'll reserve it for the trial, Your Honor.
Very well. Okay, defense, do you have anything specific you would like to discuss?
Yes, Your Honor. We have a few housekeeping as well as motions in limine. It's a good.
Very well.
Your Honor, for the record, my name is Adam Leidig, and I represent the defense, Mr. Reese Taylor, Coach Reese Taylor, in today's case. I have a couple housekeeping matters just to clear up some issues we may have. Your Honor, may we assume that all witnesses have been sworn prior to their testimony today?
Yes, and I'll constructively swear them in before they start testifying.
Yes, Your Honor. And when it comes to approaching, may we ask to constructively approach Your Honor and the witness in terms of entering exhibits or impeachments?
Yeah, my understanding is you've been told to treat this similar to a bench trial when it comes to that, so that'll be fine.
Yes, Your Honor. And Your Honor, would you like us to proffer our experts before giving an expert opinion under Federal Rules of Evidence 702?
No, that's fine.
Your Honor, may the exhibits retain the original markings as been provided in the fact pattern?
I would prefer that, yes.
And Your Honor, may we, due to the nature of the trial we have at Zoom court, as Mr. Love has said, may we assume that we have shown opposing counsel copies of what we'll be providing the witness when we approach?
I would ask that you call their attention to the item so that they can pull it up if they feel it's necessary. That'll probably make things move a little smoother, so they're not scrambling to find the thing. So if you could just say, hey, I'm pulling up exhibit such and such, and move on from there.
Yes, Your Honor. And on cross-examination, when a witness doesn't remember anything, would remember a specific fact, would you prefer us to allow a refresh of the recollection, or would you prefer us to impeach?
I would prefer you to follow the rules.
Yes, Your Honor. And when impeaching or refreshing recollections with witnesses, would you prefer us to place the deposition on the screen for the witness's convenience?
My understanding is the witnesses have copies of that. If we run into a problem where they do not have copies or cannot pull up what you're trying to get them to pull up, then you can put it on the screen.
Yes, Your Honor. And when we have the correct pronunciation of your last name?
Altman, A-L-T-M-A-N, just like the spelling.
Okay. And with that, Your Honor, ready to proceed to motions.
Okay, you have 1 minute and 49 seconds to make them.
I'll try to be quick, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'd like to invite the court's attention to the pretrial order, number 2 of the pretrial order, which indicates that liability and damages will be tried separately in this case. And because this is a bifurcated trial, because of your pretrial order, Your Honor, we actually moved to exclude any mention of any scholarships the plaintiff receives or was supposed to receive, or anything that would indicate that he was going to go to a Division I school. As you know, Your Honor, this doesn't establish more likely or not that Coach Taylor was liable for the actions or for the wrongful death of Roy Street, and because of that, it's irrelevant and unduly prejudicial.
Okay, 1 second. Any response to that from the plaintiff?
I believe there could be probative value to this testimony, depending on how it comes out of trial. I'd ask the court to hold it under advisement until we get there and we hear how the witness testifies about it. There's some issues regarding the coach's pressures placed on Mr. Street that may make those pieces of evidence relevant.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. If opposing counsel, it seems as opposing counsel wants to agree that if the door is open, that we can go into that information. And if that is the understanding, I am okay with that. As long as opposing counsel doesn't mention anything about scholarships or Division I during the opening statements, as the door hasn't been open yet.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grant a motion in limine on the issue yet again. If you feel, plaintiff, you feel it's necessary to go into those matters, if you feel they become probative, then you can, again, lay the foundation and request to be able to go into that. Understood?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You mentioned you had another motion.
Yes, during a pretrial conference, both parties actually agreed to this. To the best of my memory, we agreed to exclude any conversation about Coach Reese previously leaving his job under the circumstances that happened because of being unduly prejudicial. And we also agreed to exclude any mention of the use of tents or Gatorade at practices after the death of the plaintiff, Your Honor.
Is that the case?
I agree with that. We just asked to be able to approach the bench if at some point we believe the door's been open to that testimony or evidence.
I'm fine with that. Anything else?
No, Your Honor. Ready to proceed to opening statements.
Very well. Give me 1 second to transfer over to the mid pretrial matters. They brought me a new form for timing, so let me switch over to that. Okay. Plaintiff, do you have an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, feel free to begin.
It's September 7th, 2018, around 3:15 in the afternoon. Over at Waco High School, boys soccer team is already practicing. It's 103 degrees outside, but they're practicing just as hard as they would on any other day. They're scrimmaging for an hour. They're running drills. They're shooting into the net. They're passing the ball. They're dribbling and sprinting down a soccer field for an hour long. At around 4:15 p.m., a star player on the team named Rory Street begins to struggle. He's missing passes. He's missing wide open shots at the net. He's slowing down to a jog. Now, this is one of the toughest kids on the team. The coach knows that. So when the Reese Taylor sees Rory struggling, he thinks he's slacking off. So Coach Taylor doesn't ask Rory if he wants a break. Coach Taylor, he doesn't ask Rory if he needs some water or he wants to sit in the shade or take a second to cool off. Coach Taylor gets madder. He gets madder and madder as each minute passes by. Now, Coach Taylor, he's been a coach for 26 years. He's not new to this game. He's not new to sports. But he puts a high bar on what he expects from his athletes. And so when he sees Rory struggling to get those passes and struggling to make those shots at the net, he decides he's going to punish Rory. He decides he's going to make Rory run what he calls the Burma Road. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Burma Road, it's a 60-yard field right next to the soccer field where they practice. And when you run the Burma Road, according to the defendant, Coach Taylor, what you have to do is sprint for 30 yards halfway down the field. And then once you sprint those 30 yards down the field, you pick up a ball and you dribble for another 30 yards. And then once you do those 60 yards running down that field, you got to get on your hands and knees, and you got to crawl back to where you started. That's the punishment Coach Taylor gave Rory for struggling on the field in 103-degree weather. But he didn't just have to do it once. No, because when Coach Taylor tells you to run the Burma Road, Coach Taylor tells you to do it until he says stop. And that day, when he sent Rory off to run in that heat, he told him, you're not going to stop until you pass out. Rory did what he was told, but he continued to struggle. You're going to hear from one of his friends on the team a boy by the name of Aubrey Saracen. Mr. Saracen was running the Burma Road next to Rory. He's going to tell you that Rory was paler than usual. Rory looked weak. Rory looked slow. Rory was struggling. He's going to tell you that Rory told him he felt funny, that he was complaining of chest pains. You're also going to hear that Coach Taylor saw that. But when he saw that, again, he didn't ask Rory if he needed help. He didn't give Rory a break. He got madder. And instead of giving Rory that break or giving him that help or even asking him what was wrong, you're going to hear Coach Taylor decided he was going to make the punishment worse. Came up with a brand new punishment, one that he had never made any soccer player or any player he coached in his 26 years do before. He called Rory back over to the field where the team was playing, and he lined up the whole soccer team. He saw Rory struggling just like he was for the last 10 minutes running on the Burma Road, and he said, you're going to dribble that ball down the soccer field, and while you do it, everyone's going to slide tackle the ball out from underneath you. Again, Rory did what he was told. Rory started running. He was dribbling that ball down the field. His first teammate ran up, slide tackled the ball, and dropped Rory to the ground. That's when Coach Taylor grabbed Rory by the back of his shirt, ripped him up off the ground, and said, do it again. Again, Rory did what he was told. He started running. He dribbled that ball. And the second teammate came up and shot out his legs and dropped him to the field. Rory got up, dribbled that ball again, got dropped again and again and again and again, 15 times. 15 times before Rory didn't get back up. He laid in that heat in the middle of the soccer field, shaking, convulsing. While all of his teammates around him tried to help him but couldn't. While Coach Taylor watched. That's why we're here today. Because Coach Taylor lost his temper, Rory Street lost his life. Rory's mother, Jordan Street, this is Rory, members of the jury. This is the boy who lost his life that day. Rory's mother, Jordan Street, has brought a wrongful death action against the defendant, Coach Taylor, because his negligence caused Rory's death. I want to tell you a little bit about the kid that Rory was. From the time he could barely walk, Rory had a soccer ball. This kid would run around dribbling that ball all day. It was his life, 24/7. Soccer, day and night. His mom shared the interest with him. The two of them would go travel to games together, root for their favorite teams, go to tournaments. But like any kid who's 18 years old at the time Rory died, Rory, he had made his couple mistakes. A couple trips to the principal's office. Maybe he was, hanging out in the parking lot with some kids who maybe weren't that great, characters. But he was a good kid. And everyone who testifies today will tell you that. But you'll hear that at the time of Rory's death, they conducted an autopsy on him. And you're going to hear that there was cocaine found in the system. You're going to hear that both experts who were hired in today's case to examine that autopsy report, toxicology report, determined that that was a small amount. And no one in this courtroom will tell you that Rory died as a result of overdosing cocaine or that he used cocaine a lot, but that it was there. But that doesn't change the fact that the reason Rory lost his life was because Coach Taylor wanted to hurt him, wanted to hurt Rory. And you don't have to take my word for it, because you're going to learn that just a couple months after Rory died on the soccer field, right in front of his face, Coach Taylor was asked the question, when you saw Rory struggling, when they were kicking him down on the ground again and again and again, did you think he was getting hurt? And you know what Coach Taylor said? That was the point. That was the point, was his answer. When you hear the evidence today, you're going to hear not only that Coach Taylor failed to help Rory at every opportunity he could have, you're going to hear that he took active steps to hurt him. And because he lost his temper, that kid lost his life. At the conclusion of the evidence today, I'm going to ask that you find him liable for doing that. Thank you.
Defense, would you like to make an opening at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Just one second. Plaintiff's counsel, so when you're sitting that far away from the mic, I still have a tough time kind of hearing you. I don't know if it's possible where you're at to move the mic closer and kind of operate with it closer to you. But I'm concerned if you're sitting that far back that if you make an objection, we may not hear it.
Your Honor, I will move up. I just have my table back here so that I can take notes on the opening. But
yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you. I just am concerned about the mic distance.
Yeah, can you hear me when I'm standing here?
I can, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just make sure I come up here if I have to say anything to the court, I'm address the floor.
That's fine. Okay, sorry. Defense counsel, you said you did want to make an opening at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
May it please the court. Opposing counsel, good morning, Your Honor. Roy Street's death is a tragedy. Nobody here is ever going to disagree about that. But the fact of the matter is, contrary to what Mr. Love just told you, Your Honor, Coach Taylor didn't cause that tragedy. The evidence is going to show today that Coach Taylor didn't cause that tragedy because a series of events did. A series of events that began with the plaintiff's use of cocaine and ended with the plaintiff having a heart condition. A heart condition that weakened the muscles in his heart and caused it to fail. And through those series of events, the evidence will show that Coach Taylor couldn't have known, couldn't have foreseen, and couldn't have done anything to stop that series of events. And before we talk about those events further, I'd like to introduce you to Coach Taylor. Now, Coach Reese Taylor was born right here in Waco. He's a father, he's a teacher, and he's a soccer coach for the local Waco High Lions. During his over 20 years of experience coaching soccer, he's had a pretty successful career. That's actually how he met the plaintiff. We're going to learn today that he met the plaintiff through his time on the soccer team and how the plaintiff was a talented athlete, an extremely physically fit athlete. Coach Taylor appreciated that because, as we're going to learn today, Coach Taylor appreciates all of his players and treats them like they're his own children. And when you're a parent like that, Coach Taylor wanted to make sure that Rory had the best and wanted to push him for greatness. And through their time together, when Rory was on the field and Coach Taylor was on the sidelines, they had that student-coach relationship of pushing for not just good, but pushing for greatness. We're going to learn today that during their time together, Coach Taylor never saw any issues with Rory's performance throughout the years. That during skill training, discipline training, endurance training, Coach Taylor never saw any issues with Rory physically. We're going to learn today that prior to September 7th of 2018, Coach Taylor had no idea that Rory had this heart condition, that Rory had drugs in his system. Now, we talked a lot about what Coach Taylor knew. But this case actually involves what Coach Taylor didn't know on September 7th of 2018. For Coach Taylor, it was just a normal day. He woke up, he went to health class, did his job, and then went to the soccer field at around about 3:30 p.m. He did what every other soccer coach did, and he did what he always did. Had the team practice in the Waco heat, because that was just a normal day for the Waco Lions. But during that day, something was different at first. We're going to learn today that Coach Taylor saw Rory, but it looked like Rory wasn't taking practice seriously. And so he wanted to push Rory for greatness. He had him run what's called the Burma Road, which is Mr. Love tried to classify as a punishment. It's something used to punish just Rory, but we're going to learn today from the plaintiff's own witness that the Burma Road is an exercise, which involves sprints, dribbling a ball, bear crawling, things that a soccer player needs to have to be able to play the game of soccer. We're also going to learn that during this time, Coach Taylor didn't see anything out of the ordinary, just that Rory was sweating just like anybody else. We're also going to learn that after this run, the Coach Taylor had Rory do a drill, a slide tackle drill. A drill that Mr. Love wants you to believe was a punishment Coach Taylor cooked up just for him, but the evidence will show that slide tackling is part of the game. That slide tackling is part of what you need to be able to do to be a good soccer player. And when that slide tackle drill happened, the coach didn't know what he couldn't have known. We're going to hear today from the plaintiff witness, Aubrey Saracen, who's going to talk about how Rory, when he ran with Aubrey, complained of feeling funny, that his chest hurt. But the evidence will show that this was never told to Coach Taylor, never told to the athletic trainer that was at the scene, never told to any other teammate. That's one thing that Coach Taylor didn't know. Another thing that Coach Taylor didn't know was that there were drugs in Rory's system. Now, we've already pre-admitted a document, and Your Honor, you're going to see that today. A document that indicated that there was cocaine in Rory's system, 60 nanograms per milliliter. Another thing that Coach Taylor simply couldn't have known when he asked Rory to do those drills. Now, the third thing that Coach Taylor simply couldn't have known was the heart condition that the plaintiff had developed. A heart condition that was spurred on by the cocaine usage. And you're going to see this today from Spencer London, a toxicologist who in his expert report indicates that the use of cocaine can cause a heart condition that weakens the heart. And that the plaintiff's cocaine use is linked to the plaintiff's unfortunate death. Now, the plaintiff has the burden of proof in today's case to prove to you by preponderance of the evidence or greater weight that Coach Taylor is negligent in how he ran practice that day. But when we hear the testimony, when we see the evidence, and we gather all the facts, we're going to see that Coach Taylor didn't know, couldn't have known, couldn't have foreseen, and couldn't have done anything to stop the plaintiff's death. Because of these facts, we ask that you find Coach Taylor not liable for the death of the plaintiff. Thank you.
Plaintiff, you may call your first witness.
Your Honor, before we call our first witness, we would just like to constructively read portions of Jordan Street's deposition testimony to Your Honor. I'm not going to take up the court's time with it, but it's just background information that I talked about Rory playing soccer as a kid. It's line. If I can give Your Honor the page and line number.
I'm sorry, you're gonna constructively read it?
Just to show it's part of the record, Your Honor, because I opened on it, I want to make sure it's part of the record, but I don't want to take up the court's time to read background information about how he played soccer as a kid.
Yeah, I don't think I'm okay constructively reading in deposition. If you want to do deposition testimony, you're going to need to read it.
Okay, Your Honor. We can have it read in. I'll just need assistance from my co-counsel, Ms. Doyle, and she can come up on the screen, Your Honor.
Yeah, that's fine. However you want to do it, but we're going to read it.
For the court's reference, it's page 3, lines 14 through. It starts right there, Your Honor. We'll stop when we conclude it, but it starts at page 3, lines 14.
Okay.
I apologize, Your Honor. It starts at page 3, line 13. That's the question.
Okay.
So, first question is, where did he go to school?
I'm sorry, would you mind one moment?
Sure, no problem.
Rory went to Waco High just like me.
Did Rory participate in sports?
Yes, he played varsity soccer for the school. He also played soccer for a private traveling club on the weekends. To be honest, that kid's life was pretty much soccer 24/7. Getting him to read a book was the hardest part.
When did Rory start playing soccer?
Oh gosh, when he was little, 4 or 5 years old. I went and signed him up to get him started with just being out and being athletic and being around other kids. But he took to it right away and never looked back. Before you knew it, we were spending weekends driving all over Texas to soccer tournaments, and the next 12 or so years were just kind of a blur. Soccer tournaments, soccer practices, soccer camps, soccer everything.
And then the next portion of testimony, we'll skip down to page 4, starting at line 14. Was soccer something the two of you shared?
You know, I played soccer in college, so I already loved the game. But I didn't care what the sport was. I just loved having a kid that was into sports of any kind. I loved getting up on the weekends when he was little to go kick the ball in the backyard and let him try to dribble past me. I loved talking about games and strategy. It brought back so many memories of my playing days, but this was even better because it was my kid and it made him so happy. By the time Rory was in high school, we even had a favorite team, West Ham United, that we would root on together every weekend during the English Premier League season. We loved going to T-Bone's barbecue to watch matches. I thought we would forever be blowing bubbles.
And that concludes the portion of the deposition testimony I'd like to read, Your Honor. With that, we'd like to call Aubrey Saracen to the stand.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Can you please state your name for the court?
Aubrey Saracen.
Mr. Saracen, where do you go to school?
I go to school at Waco High.
Did you play any sports when you were in school there?
Yes, I did. I played soccer all 4 years.
Did you know someone named Rory Street?
I did.
How did you know Rory?
Rory was my best friend. I knew him growing up all throughout my life, and we played on the same soccer team together.
What kind of player was Rory?
He was the best. He's amazing. He was the star of our team.
Did you know a person by the name of Reese Taylor when you were at school there?
I did.
Who's Reese Taylor?
He was our head soccer coach for the 4 years I was on the team.
How was your relationship with Coach Taylor?
Not great. He was a pretty brutal coach. He was loud and would yell at us a lot and punish us.
Well, we'll get to how Coach Taylor punished issue a little later. I want to talk about a specific day you were at soccer practice. Do you remember September 7th?
Of course, I'll never forget that day.
What time did practice start September 7th?
It started around 3:15 as it usually does.
What did it feel like outside? What was the weather like?
It was extremely hot. It was excruciating. Yeah, extremely hot.
If I showed you a picture of the soccer field that you played on, would you recognize it?
I would.
Permission to show the witness exhibit 6.
You may.
Do you have that exhibit in front of you? So let me know when you have it.
I have it.
Okay, do you recognize that picture?
I do.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the soccer field you played on?
It is.
All right, we move exhibit 6 in evidence.
Any objections? I'm going to assume you said no objections. It is entered in evidence.
Sorry, Your Honor, no objections.
May I publish it, Your Honor?
You may.
Ms. Doyle, if you could put it up on the screen for me. Can you tell us what this is?
This is our practice field at Waco High that we practiced on.
And is this what it looked like when you practiced on it back when you were in high school?
Yes, it did.
You said that it was hot on September 7th. Do you know exactly how hot it was that day off the top of your head?
It was 105 degrees.
Your Honor, we'd just like to note the court's attention that we have Exhibit 21 already pre-admitted into evidence listing the weather that day, ranging between 103 degrees to 105 degrees during the time of the soccer practice, just to draw that out for the court's attention.
Okay.
When you first started practicing at 3:15 and about what you said was 105 degree weather, what did you do first?
We were scrimmaging.
How long did you scrimmage?
I was involved in the scrimmage for about an hour, until around like 4:30.
About 4:30, you stopped scrimmaging. What did you do?
I was told to go run Burma Road
And why were you told that?
because I did something wrong. Coach thought I needed to go be punished and run Burma Road.
So I want to talk about what Burma Road is. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, Burma Road is a drill that coach would often have us do if we ever did anything wrong or messed up on while playing. And it's where we would sprint 30 yards and then dribble a ball another 30 yards, score in an open net, and then we'd have to bear crawl back that 60 yards.
Mr. Saracen, can you pull up Exhibit 2 if Your Honor? Can I show the witness Exhibit 2?
Has Exhibit 2 been admitted?
It hasn't been admitted, Your Honor. I want to lay
Oh, you
foundation.
show the witness. Sorry, I misunderstood you. Yeah, you may show the witness.
I have it up.
Do you recognize this?
I do.
And what is it?
It's a aerial shot of the practice field.
Is it very accurate of what you remember the field to look like?
Yes, it does. It looks the same.
Your Honor, we move Exhibit 2 in evidence.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibit 2 is entered into evidence.
And with Your Honor's permission, may I publish it?
You may.
Just wait, please. All right, so I want to talk about these some markings on here. The blue box. What's the blue box?
So the blue box is the practice field. That's where our practices would be conducted.
Okay, is that where you scrimmage?
Yes, it is.
So the red box. What's that?
The red box, that's the area where we go and run Burma Road.
And do you know how big that box is?
Excuse me?
Do you know how large that practice area is where Burma Road is?
I don't remember. but definitely smaller than the practice field, and I was able to run 60 yards or bear crawl 60 yards.
Okay, so you bear crawled 60 yards down that field. Is that right? When you were running Burner Road on September 7th, did you run the road by yourself the whole time?
Not the whole time, no. After a couple minutes, Rory joined me on Burma Road.
Okay, when you saw Rory, how did he look?
Could you state that again? I couldn't hear you.
When you saw Rory, how did he look?
He wasn't looking well, lifeless, more pale than usual. He was slugging along. He did not look like he usually does.
Did he run the Burner Road with you?
Yeah, he was running it for a couple minutes with me.
Now, do you know why Rory was running Burner Road that day?
I heard while I was running Burma Road, I heard Coach yelling at him pretty loud. I heard Coach say something like, "You're useless, and I might as well run you till you pass out." He was really giving it to Rory that day.
And when Coach yelled at Rory to run until he passes out, did Rory go over to the Burma Road trail?
He did. He came over and he joined me.
Now, did Rory run the trail, or excuse me, the road, as they called it, the same amount of time as you?
I mean, I was running it initially, and then he joined with me for a couple minutes.
Okay. You said a couple minutes. Why did he stop? Do you know why?
Well, Coach called him back up, started yelling at him for lollygagging on while we were running the road, and had him come back over to the practice area.
Before you went back to the practice area, did you ever see Rory take a break?
No,
Did you ever see Rory be allowed to go get some water?
I didn't.
Did you hear Coach ask him if he wanted a water or a break?
No.
So when Rory was called back over to the practice field, did he go?
He did.
Do you know what happened at the practice field? Were you able to see?
Yeah, I was able to see as Rory made his way over there, Coach had the rest of the team line up, and he kicked over the ball to Rory and told him to dribble as he was passing all the team members, and each teammate had to slide tackle Rory and try to get the ball away.
Let me stop right there. Can you tell us what a slide tackle is?
Yeah, so a slide tackle is when a player would slide and try to kick the ball away from the player with the ball, and preferably you're trying to hit the ball away, but most of the time you end up hitting and making contact with that player, and most of the time that player will hit the floor or hit the ground.
Now, are slide tackles something that happened during an actual game?
Yeah, they are.
Prior to that day, when Coach Taylor ordered the slide tackles on Rory, had he ever done that to another student before?
No, this was the first time I'd ever seen him use this drill, if you want to call it that.
That day, was anyone other than Rory Street required to dribble a ball while they were getting slide tackled?
Nope, it was just Rory.
What happened when the first student, or did they slide tackle him? Did they slide tackle him at all?
Yeah, so our first teammate slide tackled Rory, and Rory immediately collapsed, fell to the ground, and it looked real bad, and we were, knowing how bad he was.
Let me stop right there before we go on. When Rory fell to the ground, what did Coach Taylor do?
He didn't say anything to him. He just walked over to Rory and grabbed him by his jersey and just yanked him up onto his feet and kept him doing the drill.
He yanked him back up. Did Rory keep doing the drill?
He did.
How many times did Rory go through that drill?
He did it 15 times.
And each of those 15 times when he was dribbling along, and those other students were slime tackling him, what happened to Rory?
He would fall down, and then he'd have to get either himself back up or coach would have to pick him up.
And when coach was picking him back up and he was doing this, after that 15th time, did he get back up?
He didn't. He stayed on the ground, and he was just convulsing and looked like he was having a seizure.
At any point during that day, you said you saw that Rory looked lifeless. Did you tell coach that you saw that?
I didn't.
Why didn't you?
You know, during practice, we're all kind of operating under the idea that if you complain or say something wrong, that coach will punish us for it, make us do Burma Road again, or just make us work harder. So I just figured that it'd be best to keep it to myself.
Objection, Your Honor. Assuming we're all, Your Honor, objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Your Honor, can it be heard?
Second. Okay. I'm assuming you don't want to lose time during the argument. Any response?
Yes, Your Honor, this isn't speculation. This witness is explaining their rationale and their motivations for why they didn't report this. It's not speculating to Coach Taylor's mindset. It's talking about what this witness's motivations were.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Love just asked why he didn't tell Coach Taylor about what he heard from the plaintiff. He said that if he would have told him, then Coach may have punished us. And testifying to what Coach would have done and would have thought, that's speculation to his mindset, Your Honor, and it's objectionable.
And overrule the objection.
Now, you said you didn't tell Coach yourself, but how close was Coach Taylor to Rory when he was getting knocked to the ground again and again?
He was very close. He was running the drill. He was he was closer than me, and he was like right on Rory.
Any time during that drill where Rory's getting knocked to the ground, did he get a break?
No, he didn't.
Did he get any water?
He didn't.
Did he get a chance to go in the shade?
Nope.
After he fell to the ground the 15th time, what did Coach do? Did he call 911?
He didn't. He did nothing.
Who called 911?
We did. The trainer told us to call 911.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any cross to this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Actually, 1 second, sorry. You may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Saracen.
Afternoon.
I want to talk to you about your relationship with Rory. You testified that you were best friends, right?
Yeah,
You actually grew up together.
we did.
Soccer was your activity you did together, right?
Yeah, it was.
During that time, you were a midfielder, was it?
Right.
And he was a forward, right?
Right.
And during your junior year, you both were starting, correct?
We were.
Now, I was listening to your direct examination, and you talked about how a brutal coach is. Did I remember that correctly?
Yes.
How he'd punish you.
Right.
Aren't you just saying that because you don't like him?
No.
Well, isn't it true that he upset you in the past?
Yeah.
He upset you because he took away that starting position from you your senior year, right?
I mean, that was one thing that I didn't like.
Right. You thought you deserved that position.
Right.
And you found it unfair that he took you from that position.
Right.
Especially because he replaced you with his own child. True?
Yes.
Something that you found completely unfair.
Yeah.
Regardless, I'd like to talk to you about your time in soccer practice. Now, any other practice, it would be towards the midday in Waco, right?
Right.
So you're no stranger to the heat, are you?
Yeah.
And at practices, there's water available.
Yeah.
And when you want to get water, you just go over and get it. Isn't that true?
Only if we have breaks.
Well, is it your testimony that you can only get water only if you have breaks?
I believe so.
Do you recall giving a deposition?
Yes.
In this deposition, you knew that you needed to be truthful?
Yeah.
Accurate?
Yeah.
And complete?
Yes.
And you remember signing that deposition, testifying to its truthfulness, its accuracy, and its completeness.
Yes.
And you knew that you had to testify truthfully in today's case, right?
Yes.
Now, do you have your deposition in front of you, Mr. Saracen?
Yeah, I can pull it up.
Okay. Let me know when you have that in front of you, please.
All right, I got it.
Okay. Inviting the court's attention to page 14 of Mr. Saracen's deposition, lines 1 through 3. Now, were you asked this question and did you give this answer? Question. During practice that day, was water or Gatorade provided? Your answer, sure, there were always water bottles and you could run over and grab a drink during breaks in practice. Now, did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Now, a portion of it is talking about the breaks in practices, true?
Yeah.
And usually in practices, you took one break every hour, right?
Typically, yeah.
And on September 7th of 2018, you can't remember whether you took or you didn't take a break, true?
Yeah, I don't remember a break.
Right. I'd like to talk to you more about Rory on September 7th. You saw him when you were running the Burma run together, right?
Yeah.
And during that time, you stated that Rory told you about his physical condition.
Yeah.
He told you he was feeling funny.
Yes.
He told you he had chest pains.
Right.
You described him as having paler skin.
Yes.
You know that he told you this, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know if he told Coach Taylor,
I don't.
the athletic trainer,
Yeah, I don't.
any of the other teammates you were on the team with.
I wasn't aware of any of that.
You're not aware if he told anybody, correct?
Yeah.
Now, you also saw the slide tackle drill, true?
I did.
And during this time, you know what a slide tackle is, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
It's a part of the game of soccer, true?
Yeah.
As a good player, like you and Rory were, you're expected to be able to do a slide tackle.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be able to defend from a slide tackle, right?
Yeah.
And certainly both of you have done slide tackles at practice before, right?
Yeah.
You're familiar with the slide tackle drill.
Well, not this drill.
Well, that wasn't my question. Directing back to my question, you're familiar with the slide tackle drill, right?
With a slide tackle drill, yeah.
Right. Now, in the day in question, Rory never told you about any heart conditions, right?
Objection, Your Honor. At this point, there's been no foundation laid that Rory had a heart condition. So for this witness to be asked about a heart condition, that Rory may or may not have had, they have to lay the foundation first that it exists.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
May.
Your Honor, during the pretrial pretrial motions, we admitted a couple documents that have already been actually admitted as part of the pretrial order that indicate that Rory suffered from myocarditis, which is a heart condition that weakens the heart and can sometimes be aggravated by cocaine use. This was admitted by both parties in today's case, and I'm asking this witness whether or not he's familiar or had Rory tell him about myocarditis or any heart conditions.
Your Honor, my understanding of that testimony, that expert report's words, are not that this was a heart condition, but this is something that happens as a result of dying. Like while his heart was failing from heat stroke, this condition developed. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, and I know opposing counsel's not either, but for him to, characterize this as a medical heart condition when it's a word that I can barely say, let alone understand, I think is mischaracterized, especially for a witness like this.
But because I'm going to be honest, I don't understand your objection. What is your objection to that question?
That there's no foundation laid to Rory having a heart condition. If we're going to ask Rory, ask this witness about it, it's misleading. So it's a
Why
403
can the
objection.
witness not defend, sir? I don't know anything about a heart condition. I'm confused as to what rule of evidence are you objecting under?
Under 403, Your Honor, this is misleading.
Okay, so it's misleading to the jury. All right. Do you have a response to a 403 objection defense?
Yes, Your Honor. There is no undue prejudice or undue misleading from this line of inquiry, Your Honor. Here we have evidence from both sides in today's case that Rory suffered from sudden cardiac arrest and also the conditions that are associated with cocaine use. A cocaine use which has been admitted by both sides through the autopsy report and toxicology report that Your Honor has and we talked about during the pretrial order. This line of inquiry is just to go into whether or not Rory ever told his friend, his best friend that he's known for many years, whether or not he had a heart condition.
The objection's overruled.
Mr. Saracen, during your time with Rory, many years, he never told you about a heart condition, did he?
He didn't.
And to know that he had a heart condition would surprise you, wouldn't it?
It would.
Another thing that would surprise you is Rory using drugs, correct?
That would surprise me.
Using cocaine, that would surprise you, right?
Yeah.
Because prior to September 7th of 2018, he never told you he was using drugs, true?
That's true.
And it surprised you when he collapsed on September 7th of 2018, right?
It did.
And it surprised you because, in your words, Mr. Saracen, he collapsed out of nowhere, true?
True.
Thank you, Mr. Saracen. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect?
No redirect to this witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Saracen, thank you for your time. You are excused. Do you have any other witnesses you'd like to call?
Not live, Your Honor, but I would like to revisit the deposition testimony of Jordan Street and read a passage at this time based on the testimony of the last witness.
That's fine.
If Mr. Richards could come on the screen. Drawing the court's attention to page 7, line 8 of Jordan Street's deposition testimony. When Ms. Floyd, you're ready, please let me know. Unmute your mic, please.
Thank you. My apologies. I'm ready.
So starting with page 7, line 8, did Rory regularly visit his pediatrician?
At least once a year for a physical.
During any of those yearly physicals, were there any issues?
None. Rory never had any serious medical issues, just normal kid stuff.
That concludes the deposition testimony. I'd like to read it this point.
Okay. Any other witnesses?
Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, we have no further witnesses live, but I would like to read a portion of an expert report from Reagan McConaughey. It's already been pre-admitted into evidence. It's Exhibit 16.
That's fine.
Page 2, Your Honor. And if I may have Ms. Deutsch put the page actually up on the screen so the other members of the bench can see it as well.
That's fine.
One moment, Your Honor.
Can we have that calling out? Is that possible? If not, I can just read it as it is. Your Honor, may I read it?
You may.
Here is the opinion that I have reached in this case based on a reasonable degree of professional and/or medical certainty. Rory Street died as a result of heat exhaustion and/or heat stroke. And with that, Your Honor, I have no further evidence at this time. We are permitted a rebuttal case, but I rest my case in chief.
Okay. Defense, do you have any motions you'd like to make at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, before you start, give me just a second. Okay, you make your motion.
Your Honor, pursuant to Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 52C, we asked for a partial or judgment on the partial findings. Your Honor, the plaintiff, upon resting their case in chief, cannot meet their burden of proof to prove by a greater way of the evidence that Coach Taylor was negligent in how he ran practice on September 7th of 2018. Now, we heard testimony today from Mr. Saracen that he had heard Rory complain about his chest pain, but we never heard any testimony establishing that Coach Taylor had knowledge or any sort of idea that Rory was actually even suffering from any sort of heart conditions or anything of chest pains or feeling funny. And because Mr. Love has failed to satisfy this burden of proof, Your Honor, we actually move for a partial judgment under 52C.
Just to clarify, if I were to grant that motion, would that not render all other issues moot?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd ask.
You're asking for a directed verdict.
Yes, Your Honor. My apologies.
Okay. Response?
Your Honor, to start with, this isn't a case about, someone with an underlying medical condition. We've heard that there was no medical condition from his mother at any of the yearly visits when he went to his pediatrician. So that's not why there was the negligence issue, not for failing to see a medical condition, but for pushing that kid when he knew the kid was suffering from heat stroke, or not necessarily heat stroke, but had symptoms of heat stroke. You heard the testimony that he was not only ordering Rory to do things because he was slowing down and missing passes. You heard testimony that when Rory fell to the ground and couldn't get up, he physically picked this kid up. You don't need an expert to say that that's, below the standard of care for a coach. Any reasonable, rational layperson could come to the conclusion based on seeing a kid collapse on the ground and being physically pulled up, that that is not a reasonable way that a person who's operating with ordinary care runs a soccer practice in 103-degree weather after this kid had been running for an hour without a break, without an ounce of water, without a second to catch his breath, or a second to sit in the shade. That is, a layperson can reach that conclusion based on the testimony we heard, taking all the evidence in a light most favorable to the plaintiff.
Motion is denied. Defense, would you like to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Before we do, may I request a brief 5-minute recess if time permits?
We will not be taking any breaks today to keep the things moving on schedule.
Case understood, Your Honor. Well, in that case, the defense calls Coach Reese Taylor to the stand.
Coach Taylor, you've been constructively sworn in.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Actually, I'm sorry, pause for 1 second. I do want to give you guys an update on time. Defense, you have 40 minutes and 11 seconds. Plaintiff, you are at 25 minutes and 10 seconds. Any questions about that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Coach Taylor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Reese Taylor.
Mr. Taylor, what do you do for a living?
I am a soccer coach at Waco High.
Is it okay if I call you Coach?
Oh, yeah, that's perfectly fine. That's what everyone calls me.
All right. So, Coach, how long have you been coaching soccer?
I've been coaching soccer for the past 20 years, but I've been a coach for about 26.
Why do you coach soccer?
I just enjoy it. I enjoy the game. It's a world sport. Everyone, around the world acknowledges it, and I just love it. It's a great game.
How long have you coached at Waco High?
I've coached at Waco High in particular for about 6 years now.
Tell us about your time at Waco High.
So I'm a health coach. I mean, like a health teacher and a coach. So I spend time in the classroom, outside the classroom. I consider myself really involved with the school and with the students, and I just love coaching. It's great.
Have you had to take any classes to be a soccer coach?
Yeah, there are like annual classes that you can take. I don't know if they're mandatory, but they are really good to take, especially if you want to be a good, safe coach and stay up to date with all of the health and like health standards and stuff like that, and coaching standards.
Do you like to go to these clinics?
I do. I think it's advantageous for not only myself but for the soccer program as well. It's a great building experience.
How many clinics do you go to a year, if you can remember?
I can't remember. Maybe one or two a year. I can't remember exactly, to be honest.
Are you familiar with the clinic that took place on June 15th of 2018?
Yeah, I am.
Now, and if I showed you a copy of any slides you received, would you recognize them?
I would.
Coach, do you have Exhibit 7 or Exhibit 11 rather handy for you?
Yeah, I think I can pull it up. Okay, I have that in front of me.
Okay. And so do you recognize these slides at all?
I do.
Where do you recognize them from?
They are from the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association annual coaches meeting.
And are these a fair and accurate depiction of the slides that you saw while at the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association meeting?
It is. They are.
Your Honor, I'm sorry?
They are. They're accurate.
Okay. Your Honor, the defense offers what has been marked identification as Exhibit 11 into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Then Exhibit 11 is admitted.
Tyler, could you post page 2 of Exhibit 11, please? Thank you. Could everyone's Coach Taylor, can you see that okay?
I can see it.
Okay. Coach Taylor, tell us about the meeting that you had on June 15th regarding these slides.
Yeah, so this particular slide is talking about practicing in the heat and how to do it safely, and what they recommend for athletes and players with regard to the heat, with practicing in the heat.
Okay. Now, Tyler, could you bring us to the third page of this? Thank you, Tyler. Now, Coach Taylor, we've heard a lot today about a slide tackle. What is a slide tackle?
Yeah, so a slide tackle is a pretty fundamental part of playing soccer. It's pretty important. It's essentially you're sliding on the ground. It's a defensive move. When somebody else is dribbling, you slide it on the ground, and the goal is to take the ball away from them.
Now, as part of your coaching duties, do you teach your players how to slide tackle?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important that you teach them how to properly slide tackle to prevent injury from the player with the ball or the person slide tackling. And it's also important to prevent penalties and stuff like that, which could end up, causing you to lose a game. So it's pretty important.
Okay. Thank you, Tyler. Now, Coach Taylor, I'd like to talk to you about your relationship with the players that you had. Tell us about the relationship you had with the players at Waco High.
Yeah, I love my players, and the number one goal of any good coach is to make sure that your players succeed. And I loved all my players like they were my own kids, and I was always trying to put their best interests first.
Coach, are you familiar with the plaintiff in today's case?
I am, yes.
Who was Rory?
Rory, he was one of our best players. He's one of the best players that I've ever had the privilege of coaching. Great kid, great kid.
How long did he play for you, if you can remember?
I think 2 or 3 years, if I can remember correctly. He was one of our star players on the varsity team.
During those years where Rory played under your coaching, did he ever make any comments to you about having any medical conditions?
No, never, nothing like that, no.
Did he ever talk to you about drug usage?
No, not at all.
Based on your rash perception as his soccer coach, did you ever have any reason to suspect that he was using drugs?
No, I mean, he was such a star player. I couldn't imagine him doing something like that. It would kind of jeopardize his scholarship or like different opportunities.
Coach, I'd like to talk to you about September 7th of 2018. Do you remember that day?
I do.
Tell us about that day at soccer practice.
So we were practicing in the afternoon as usual, as we typically did, and I remember Rory kind of goofing off a bit, and missing shots that he would always make, and not being in position like he typically would be.
You said practice in the afternoon as usual. What do you mean by this?
Well, we typically practice in the afternoon around 3:30. It's pretty advantageous for the team because that's typically when we play our games. So it's good for them to be conditioned in that environment, I guess.
Was this how you usually held practices when you were the soccer coach at Waco High?
Always.
You were telling us about Rory goofing off. What did you do when you saw Rory goofing off?
Well, I got onto him a few times and just kind of told him like, "Hey, get it together." And then eventually he just kept slacking and dogging and just lollygagging. So eventually I told him to run Burma Road.
What is Burma Road?
So Burma Road is a tradition that we have here at Waco High. It's been around forever. I actually went to Waco High and I had to run Burma Road whenever I was in school. And what it is you sprint 30 yards and then you sprint an additional 30 yards with a soccer ball. And then you shoot the ball at an open goal and then you bear crawl back 60 yards to the starting line. And then you do it again.
How many times do they usually do it?
It varied. I mean, until it seemed like, you got the point, and it just varied.
Did you see Rory do Burma Road that day?
I did. Yeah, off and on.
Did you notice anything out of the ordinary when he was running Burma Road?
No, I mean, it seemed like, again, like he wasn't taking it very serious and he was kind of having like an attitude issue.
So when you saw Rory having an attitude issue, what did you do?
I called him over to the field with the rest of the players and I had him run another slide tackling drill.
When you called him over with the other players, did you notice anything out of the ordinary with Rory's physical condition?
No, not at all. Like I said, he just seemed like he was just having a bad attitude that day or something.
Why did you pick the slide tackle drill as Rory's next drill?
Well, I just felt, like I said, slide tackling is a fundamental part of the game of soccer. And Rory's he's a forward or an offensive player. And so he would be on the receiving end of a slide tackle. So it just made sense.
Tell us about the drill that you had Rory do.
So I had him dribble a ball and I had the rest of the team line up, and one by one, they would have to try to slide tackle and get the ball from Rory.
Did you have Rory do this drill?
I did. I had him do that.
No. Were you in the courtroom when Mr. Saracen gave his testimony?
I was.
Did you hear where Mr. Saracen described that when Rory fell to the ground, you grabbed him by his jersey and yanked him to his feet?
Yeah, I would think that's kind of over exaggerated. I did pick him up, but it wasn't like hostile or anything like that.
About how many times?
If we may move to sidebar.
May constructively approach.
Your Honor, I believe this witness just opened the door to evidence we previously agreed upon would be excluded in pretrial. I asked if I'd be able to approach the bench when I believe they opened the door. The witness testified that he did not pick up Rory by his shirt in a hostile manner. Now, the evidence we're discussing here is evidence in which this witness previously grabbed another student by the back of their neck and pulled them up because he was angry at that student. This is a past act that we agreed would not be in the evidence, would not be in evidence say under 404 character evidence. But because this witness just opened the door and said he wouldn't grab him in a hostile way and pull him up by the neck, he just opened the door to that evidence coming in to impeach him on that point.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, no door has been opened as into this previous propensity evidence. Now, Mr. Love wants to have this evidence in, which is in violation of Federal Rules of Evidence 404A, that because Coach Taylor may have acted in a certain way in the past, that he had to have grabbed Rory in an aggressive way on that day. No door has been opened, and Your Honor, because of that, there shouldn't be any line of inquiry as to these previous actions.
Maybe her. Your Honor, what this witness said was, I wouldn't grab him in a hostile way like that. By saying that, he opened the door not to show for propensity, but to show for impeachment purposes. To show it that his testimony that he just gave, that he wouldn't grab someone like that hostilely, isn't true because he did it before. So it goes to his credibility. It's for impeachment purposes at this point, and we can limit its use for that purpose, to challenge his testimony that he wouldn't grab a student like that.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard the witness say, I didn't grab him hostilely, not I wouldn't grab him hostilely. Does that, assuming that is what he said, because that's what I heard, does that change your objection, line of reasoning, anything like that?
I think it still opened the door to the extent that he said, I wouldn't grab him hostilely. In his deposition testimony, he testified he grabbed a student hostilely. So I think that the fact that he's saying he wouldn't do it hostilely, well, admittedly, it brings it closer to, the door closing a little bit. I think it's still, there's a crack there.
Any last words?
Yes, Your Honor, very briefly. I understand Mr. Love's contention. However, Coach Taylor told this court that on September 7th, he didn't grab Rory forcefully, much like the plaintiff's witness took the stand today and was able to talk about. Your Honor, this question isn't opening the door, but it's allowing fair play and consideration of all evidence in today's case, not just the evidence that the plaintiff wants to pick.
So I agree that I don't believe the door has been opened at this point as to the prior act. I still think that's propensity and inappropriate at this time. However, if we move forward into that, or if there's some kind of foundation you can lay that connects the two in a manner that is permissible and is not propensity, you can readdress it later.
Yes, sir.
At this point, I'm going to overrule your motion to allow the evidence.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Deny your motion, I guess is the better way to put that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, Coach, we talked about it previously, and I just want to make sure that the answer's on the record. And did you grab Rory by the jersey forcefully and pull him to his feet like Mr. Saracen said you did?
No.
Tell us about how that drill ended, Coach.
After a few tackles, slide tackles, Rory fell to the ground, and he didn't get back up.
What did you do as a result?
I don't even remember. Everything just happened so quickly, so traumatizing. I just remember that the ambulance showed up.
Thank you, Coach Taylor. And thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Anything on cross for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Coach Taylor, you blame Rory Street for his own death, don't you?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Well, you wouldn't say that, but you did say that, right? You blame him for his own collapse, right?
Sure.
Well, you take no responsibility for what happened to Rory, right?
I don't think that I killed Rory, no.
Well, sir, the question was, do you take responsibility for what happened?
No, I don't.
Right, because even though you were the coach on the field that day.
I was the coach, yes.
And Rory, he's an 18-year-old kid when he dies, right?
Yes, he was 18.
In fact, sir, do you believe, as you sit there right now, that you wouldn't have done anything different?
No.
You wouldn't have given Rory one more break, right?
I mean, if he needed it, I would have.
Well, in fact, you didn't give Rory any breaks during that whole drill, did you?
He had the opportunity to get water if he wanted it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, sir. You cut out.
I said he had the opportunity to get water if he wanted.
Well, you didn't tell him to go get water, did you?
No, I did not.
You wouldn't have offered Rory a chance to go sit in the shade, right?
We didn't have any shades.
Knowing what you know now, sir, you wouldn't have had one less kid kick out his legs from underneath them. Is that your testimony?
Objection, Your Honor, and maybe constructively approach. This question is inappropriate. This is asking somebody who witnessed his own. My apologies.
Okay. Go with your objection.
Yes, Your Honor. This question is substantially more prejudicial than it is probative. He's asking this witness that, knowing everything he knows now, whether or not he would have had that one last player slide tackle him, is substantially more prejudicial than it is probative. Coach Taylor watched one of his players, one of his students, die on his field, and there were factors that he just didn't know. This question is inappropriate, Your Honor.
Response?
I don't think it's inappropriate. The witness testified that sitting right there, he wouldn't have done anything differently. And I'm just seeing how far he's willing to go with that. If he would, I'm just seeing what that, what that line is and what he would and would not have done differently.
Overruled.
So, sir, knowing what you know now, you wouldn't have had one less kid kick out his legs, would you?
If I knew somebody would die, I wouldn't have considered that.
Let's talk about why you know better than that, Coach. You coached volleyball, right?
Yes.
Softball,
Yes.
basketball.
Yes.
Of course, you coached soccer.
Yes.
You coached soccer for 20 years.
That's correct.
You've coached hundreds of kids.
That's correct.
You actually have gone to clinics to make sure that you are up to date in all the safety aspects, for students, right?
That's correct.
And one of the clinics you went to was where you got that PowerPoint we just looked at, right?
That's correct.
We'll put that PowerPoint back up, if I may, Your Honor. It's Exhibit 11. Now, I just said, Coach, if we can go back to the first page, I'm sorry. This is from the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association, right?
Yes.
You went to this meeting.
I did.
You saw these slides.
I did.
On June 15, 2018, that's what it says.
That's right.
This is just 3 months before Rory Street died on your soccer field, right?
Yes.
This is the association that governs high school soccer, right?
Yes.
Here in the state of Texas, or where you are in the state of Texas, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. In Texas.
You're in Texas?
Yep.
And so that's the high school association that governs soccer in Texas, right?
Yes.
Can you go to the next slide, please? We could go to the temperature slide, please. On the day Rory was practicing on your field for over an hour, the temperatures, they reached 100 degrees or above, didn't they?
I guess I don't remember exactly, but maybe.
You don't remember. Well, why don't we look at the temperature report from that day? Your Honor, if I could put up Exhibit 21.
You may.
Ms. Doig, you have Exhibit 21? Thank you. All right. So you started playing soccer at 3:15 that day?
Around that time.
3:15 p.m.?
Yes.
Right. 3:51 p.m., you would have been about, what, 40 minutes into playing? 30 minutes?
Yeah.
And it was 103 degrees.
Right.
Practice was still going at 4:51, right?
I believe so.
And it's 104 degrees.
That's right.
And so let's look and see what that slideshow you saw from the Texas Soccer Association says about practices done at this temperature. We can have 11 back up. It says practices must include a 5-minute break every 15 minutes of practice in the shade if possible, right?
Right.
You already said there's no shade there, right?
Right.
But you didn't have a break for Rory every 5 minutes, or every 15 minutes of practice, did you?
No.
In fact, you never let Rory get a break, did you?
Not that I remember.
Not before he ran the Burma Trail,
No.
not after he ran the Burma Trail,
No.
not before he got slide tackled, right?
Right.
Not after the 5th person slide tackled.
Right.
It says water must always be available to players during practice, right?
That's right.
You didn't bring water bottles for your students to practice, did you?
Water was available at practice. Yes.
Well, you brought them water bottles.
I didn't physically bring water to their mouth, but there was water there.
But they had to go get their own water, right?
That's what they do. Yeah.
We go to the next slide. Now we can agree that slide tackles, they're part of the game of soccer, right?
That's correct.
Happens in the game all the time.
Yes.
And when someone slide tackle and one person has the ball and they dribble,
Did you say they tripped him?
one person has the ball and they dribble the ball.
Oh, they dribble. Yes, that's correct.
And then another person will come up and try to kick the ball from them.
Yes, essentially.
You said you've taught your students slide tackling before. Is that true?
I mean, it was part of our routine, I guess. Yes.
Well, you will agree with me that the drill you made Rory do that day, that was the first time you ever ran that drill, right?
That's correct.
So Rory was the first and only student who had to do that drill.
No, that's at that time. Yes.
And the reason Rory had to do that drill was because you saw him lollygagging on the Burma Road.
That's correct.
And that drill consisted of 15 kids lined up doing these slide tackles just on Rory, right?
That's correct.
I want to be perfectly clear. We've talked about this before your deposition. You did this to punish him, right?
Yeah, he needed some discipline.
So when your lawyer, Mr. Adam Legby, said in his opening statement that this wasn't a punishment, you disagree with that, don't you?
I mean, I was just trying to discipline him.
Well, in fact, when you were asked if it looked like Rory was getting hurt, you were asked that, weren't you?
Yes.
You said that was the point.
I don't remember saying that.
You don't remember saying that. Well, how about if I show you your deposition testimony? You think that reflects your recollection, excuse me?
Yeah, I would.
If you could pull up your deposition, you have it in front of you. You have that in front of you?
I do, yes.
Draw your attention to page 9, line 13 through 15. You read that?
I'm reading it now.
Let me know when you're done reading, sir.
I'm just finished.
So now you remember what you said when you were asked if you saw Rory getting hurt, right? You remember what you said now?
I do.
You said, well, sure. That was the point, right?
Yeah, to wear him down.
No further questions.
Your Honor, objection may be heard.
Hold up 1 second. Okay, sorry. What is the objection?
Yes, Your Honor. It's an improper characterization of the evidence. Mr. Love read a portion of page 9 of those lines and said, well, sure, but that was the point, Your Honor. That's not what's in the deposition. If I may read for the court what the portion of the deposition is, well, sure, he/she was struggling, but that was the point. You know, we asked if opposing counsel is going to read portions of his deposition, that he read the full paragraph and not what just he's picking and choosing.
I didn't read anything. I asked the witness if that's what he said, and he agreed with me.
Yeah, I'm going to defense counsel. He asked the question on cross. You're more than welcome to redirect the witness, which is the appropriate remedy here. Your objection's overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
I have no further questions, as I said.
So you are done with
Yes,
your.
Your Honor.
Okay. All right. You guys give me about 30 seconds. I just got a call. I want to make sure we're not missing anybody on here. Sorry, it was unrelated. I just want to make sure that we weren't missing anybody. Okay. You say you have a redirect?
No, Your Honor. We have no further questions for this witness.
Okay. All right. Any other witnesses?
No live witnesses, Your Honor. However, we would like to read portions of Jess Merriweather's deposition for the court.
Very well.
Oh, you're up there. All right, excellent. Your Honor, may I proceed?
You can.
Okay. Inviting the court's attention to Miss Merriweather's deposition. It's going to be page 8, lines 18 through 24. Tyler, do you have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Starting on line 18, question. At any time, did you see Rory stumbling, faltering, or slowing down in a way that would have indicated that he was in trouble?
No, not at all.
Question, was Rory sweating hard?
I mean, yes, but everyone was, including me. It was a really hot day.
That concludes our reading of the deposition of Jess Merriweather. Your Honor, we also have what has been already entered into evidence, Exhibit 14, the autopsy report that was conducted on Rory following his death. We'd like to read a portion of that for the court.
That's fine.
Inviting the court's attention to paragraph 2 of the autopsy report, Exhibit 14. From the anatomic and laboratory findings and pertinent history, I ascribe the death to sudden cardiac death. Inviting the court's attention to the 5th paragraph, beginning with cardiovascular system, to the 2nd sentence. A dissection reveals no evidence of chronic cardio disease. However, there was a finding of myocarditis. Your Honor, we also have an expert report by Spencer London, a toxicologist that has already been entered into evidence. And this can be found as Exhibit 18. May I read portions of this document?
You may.
Inviting the court's attention to the 3rd page of the report, the 2nd paragraph. Additionally, the autopsy report in this case indicates that Rory Street's heart showed signs of myocarditis, which is inflammation or swelling of the heart muscle. Myocarditis can affect the heart muscle and the heart's electrical system, reducing the heart's ability to pump and causing rapid and abnormal heart rhythms, also known as arrhythmias. Myocarditis is one of the physical symptoms associated with cocaine use, which means this finding is also consistent with cocaine use. Inviting the court's attention to the 4th paragraph down. Based on the foregoing, it is my opinion within a reasonable degree of medical probability that Rory Street's death was caused, at least in part, by use of cocaine. And Your Honor, as our final portion, we ask this court take judicial notice based upon Exhibit 15, the toxicology that has already been entered into evidence, and there were 60 nanograms per milliliter of cocaine found in Rory Street's blood the day after he died.
Any response or any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. I don't believe that's an appropriate use of judicial notice. I will not be taking judicial notice of that fact.
My apologies, Your Honor. May I read from Exhibit 15 then?
You may.
Inviting the court's attention to Exhibit 15. In the toxicology section of that, specimen, blood, drug, cocaine, positive, 60 nanograms per milliliter. And just to be clear, this is the toxicology report of Rory Street that was conducted on September 8th of 2018, the day after he died. And with that, Your Honor, we rest our case in chief.
Very well. Give me just 1 second. Okay, plaintiff, you have 15 minutes and 9 seconds left for closing. Defense, you have 25 minutes and 43 seconds left for closing. Would either or both of you like a good 2-3 minutes to prep for your closing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please, Your Honor.
Yes or a no? I'm sorry.
I said yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, okay. You kind of shook your head and said yes, so I was confused. All right, defense, you would also like a few minutes?
Please, Your Honor.
Okay, so why don't we do this? You guys take 5, and we will pause for 5 minutes, let y'all prep for your closings, and we will come back.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like we have everybody back. Are the parties ready to proceed with closing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Plaintiff, like I said, you have 15 minutes and 9 seconds left for closing. Would you like any warning?
Yes, Your Honor. I was going to ask if you could just put up when I have 5 minutes left. Can you
Okay.
just hand up so I know I have 5 minutes left.
I can do that.
I appreciate it.
You may begin at your convenience.
When the defendant saw Rory Street struggling to dribble a ball, struggling to make those shots, those passes, struggling to run, he didn't just not help Rory. He wasn't just negligent and didn't do enough. He took active steps to make him suffer. And for what? To teach him a lesson? Because the coach mistook his weakening pace, his struggling in the heat for defiance? At the beginning of today's trial, they told you this wasn't done to punish Rory. But you just heard Coach Reese tell you that's exactly why he did it, to discipline him. Because Coach Reese lost his temper. Rory Street lost his life. And the coach, he knew better. He's been a coach for 26 years. He's coached hundreds of students, all different sports, and he goes to classes and seminars and clinics to learn the best standards for running his practices. 3 months before Rory died, he saw standards that if he had followed may have saved his life. Standards like take a break every 15 minutes when you're in 100-degree weather. Rory didn't get no breaks. Not before the Bermuda run or Burma run, not after the Burma run, not during those 15 times he got knocked to the ground. And when you see the cardiologist's report, Judge, you're going to see that the cardiologist says that the signs, the person who's a specialist in hearts, that the signs of him slowing down, of him weakening, of him getting, pale, those are all signs of heat stroke coming. Signs that an 18-year-old student recognized. As soon as he got to the track, he saw he was pale. He looked bad to me. And if an 18-year-old student could see it, how could this experienced coach who knew better not? Maybe he was blinded in his anger because he was so mad because he thought Rory was being defiant that he just didn't see it. Maybe he did. Maybe that's part of that discipline that coach was trying to dish out. But when you see that cardiologist report, you're going to see that he's a top doctor. So you're going to see his CV, you're going to see he's a top doctor in his field, and that he's been doing this work for years on people's hearts. He found no indication of an underlying medical condition that they brought up today. He said that Rory died of a heat stroke from practicing in that 100-degree weather, over 100-degree weather, and that makes sense. That makes sense because we all know when it's that hot out, you've been running for over an hour with no break, and then you go another 60 yards running, crawling back on your hands and knees, and then running down the field again with, no breaks, while people are kicking you down on the ground, and you have to be picked up because you're collapsed. We know, reasonable people know, that is too much. And it was too much for Rory on that day. And that's why after the 15th time he got knocked down, he didn't get back up again. You also heard coach, what did he do? He doesn't remember. Well, the student told you. He didn't call 911. Those 15 kids who were forced to kick his legs out were the ones who had to get Rory help. Members of the jury, or not members of the jury, judge, when you see both the expert reports, you're going to see that those experts agree on at least one thing. The amount of cocaine in Rory's system was a nominal amount. That's the word they use. The autopsy report says that Rory, this may have been the first time or one of the few times Rory ever used it. Or it may have been a long time ago. But it's not a large amount of cocaine, it's just small. This heart condition that they're saying he had doesn't exist. You heard the testimony of his mom from the deposition that he went to the doctor every year and never had a problem with anything. This is a victim blaming argument. Because the coach told you himself, he not only wanted to punish Rory, he saw Rory getting hurt, and it was the point. That was the point of why he did it. That is not just negligence. That's cruel. That's why I'm asking you to find him lying. Thank you.
Defense counsel, you have 25 minutes and 43 seconds. I'm going to assume you're not going to run up on that timeline.
I sure hope not, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
You bet.
Opposing counsel, Your Honor, good afternoon. If I would have known he was going to die, I wouldn't have sent that last player. In today's case, Coach Taylor took the stand today to tell you about September 7th of 2018 and how he saw Rory dogging it. How when he set up the team to do the slide tackle drills, he just thought Rory was goofing around. And when he sent that 15th player to head towards Rory and slide tackle him, and he witnessed as his student, his athlete, someone he considers his own child, go to the ground and not get back up. If he would have known that that was going to happen, we learned what Coach Taylor would have done. He would not have sent him. Judge Altman, you heard the evidence and testimony in today's case, and you know that the plaintiff has the burden of proof to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that Coach Taylor negligently caused the death of Rory Street. That now that all the testimony has come out, that all the evidence has been examined, that all the witnesses have been heard, the plaintiff has failed to prove their case. And they failed to do that because the evidence has established that Coach Taylor didn't know, he couldn't have known, and he couldn't have stopped this series of events that would eventually cascade into Rory Street's death. Now, we heard a lot about what happened on September 7th of 2018, especially from Coach Taylor's perspective. When Coach Taylor took to the field, it was a normal day. It was a normal practice in the Waco heat, but that was normal for that year. That was normal for all the times that he coached. Nothing was out of the ordinary about practicing at 3:30 p.m. During this time, he saw Rory lollygagging. And so what does a coach do? When a coach wants to invest in somebody's greatness, well, he pushes them to be their best self, to reach their max potential. And so he sent him to correct goofing around. And so he had him do the Burma run. Now, Mr. Love wants to drum the Burma Road up to some sort of baton death march. That's not the case. The case is that it's a sprint for 30 yards. It's dribbling the ball for 30 yards, shooting in an open net, and then bear crawling 60 yards back for some time. All actions that a soccer player should be able to do, especially a soccer player at the caliber that Rory was on and before September 7th of 2018. And so he told Rory to do that. But yet again, he saw Rory lollygag. And so what did he do? He had him do these drills, but there was something that Coach Taylor didn't know. The first thing that Coach Taylor didn't know was a statement that the plaintiff made to his friend, Mr. Aubrey Saracen. When they were running the Burma Road together, we heard the plaintiff complain that he was feeling funny and that his chest hurt. But the evidence is established today that Rory never told the coach. Rory never told any trainers or any members on the team other than Mr. Saracen. And during his direct testimony, we heard that Mr. Saracen never shared that information as well. And while we're not saying that Mr. Saracen had to share that information, the point is that Coach Taylor can't know what he doesn't know. That statement was never made. Rory never requested any breaks. Rory never told the coach that he felt funny. He simply could not have known. But in Coach Taylor's perspective, well, he just saw Rory goofing off yet again. So he told Rory to do the slide tackle drill. And again, Mr. Love wants you to think that this slide tackle drill is some sort of firing squad, but that's not necessarily what it is. The slide tackle is a fundamental part of soccer, something that beginner players, as well as intermediates and even advanced players like Rory, should be able to not only perform, but also defend from. That's something that's not in dispute in today's case, that slide tackles are part of the game. And so Coach Taylor did what he thought he should do. Use a fundamental part of the game to discipline Rory. Now, I understand that there's a difference between disciplining and punishing, but that's what it was. It was discipline. Because in the eyes of Coach Taylor, it looked like Rory was not taking the sport seriously, was not taking his own time seriously. And so as a good coach, he wanted to remedy this attitude. But little did he know the second thing that he simply could not have known, the cocaine use. Now, Your Honor, we saw evidence today from a toxicology report. Tyler, could you bring up the toxicology report, please? Don't believe it. Ah, there we go. Thank you, Tyler. On this toxicology report that's in evidence, Your Honor, we see the cocaine that was in his system. The cocaine that was in his system a day after he unfortunately died. Cocaine in his system that may be a nominal amount. Now, Mr. Love stressed continuously that this isn't a large amount, but Your Honor, cocaine is cocaine. Any amount is dangerous. That's probably why it's an illegal drug. It doesn't take a toxicologist or a medical expert to tell you the safe versions of cocaine, because cocaine in somebody's body is just dangerous outright. Thank you, Todd. Now, besides the obvious, why is cocaine a problem in today's case? Well, actually brings us to the third thing that Coach Taylor didn't know: Rory's heart condition. Now, Mr. Love has read the testimony from Rory's own parents that talked about the hospital visits, the pediatrician visits, that never identified any chronic condition. Your Honor, this goes to establish that Rory's own parents didn't know that myocarditis was a factor here. And if his own parents could have known that his heart had this condition, then how is it rational that Coach Taylor was to know? Now, we heard from the toxicology report by Spencer London. Spencer London, who conducted the toxicology of Rory. The toxicology that found that myocarditis, something that was indicated of happening in the autopsy, is a sign of cocaine use. Now, as we look through this toxicology report, and you're going to have the opportunity to view this toxicology report before you render a verdict, Your Honor, you're not going to see that myocarditis is a sign of large amounts of cocaine use, or infrequent amounts of cocaine use, or so much cocaine that he couldn't physically handle it. No. The fact of the matter is, myocarditis is something that's associated with cocaine use outright. And Coach Taylor didn't know that. He couldn't have known that. And the worst part of it all, he couldn't have stopped it. Because when Coach Taylor told his team to get on the field that day, and that September 7th day, he didn't know the series of events that would eventually lead to Rory losing his life. He didn't know that Rory was feeling funny. He didn't know that Rory had cocaine in his system. And because of that cocaine, he didn't know that he was going to have a heart condition. That when Coach Taylor asked that 15th player to slide tackle him, something that is done in the game of soccer, that Rory would fall to the ground and he wouldn't get up. But we heard today what Coach Taylor would have done if he had known. If I would have known he was going to die, I wouldn't have sent that last player. And Your Honor, because Coach Taylor didn't know, he couldn't have known. He couldn't have stopped this series of events that led to the plaintiff's death. We ask that you find Coach Taylor not liable for the loss of life of Rory Street. Thank you.
Any rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. Can I ask how much time I have remaining?
Oh, sorry. 9 minutes and 35 seconds.
MC?
Yes.
Your Honor, Coach Taylor said that he wouldn't have done anything different. He said it at his deposition, and he said it on the stand today. Coach Taylor doesn't understand that what he did was wrong. This kid was struggling. He was falling down on the ground and not being able to get back up. And he still says he wouldn't have done anything differently. not sending one more player, well, that's not enough. Because the series of events that led to this death didn't start after Coach Taylor sent him through those 15 kids. It started when he sent Rory on the Burma Trail. It doesn't take, and we can disagree about, why he was struggling. Was it the heat? Was it the cocaine? Was it both? But the reality is that coach saw him struggling. And if he saw him struggling and didn't stop, not only didn't stop, but wanted to make it worse, created a brand new punishment that he had never done before. And we can call punishment, we can call discipline, I'll call it discipline. It doesn't matter what you call it. The fact is, the point of why he was doing that was to make Rory suffer. And he doesn't know that that was wrong. You need to show him it was wrong with your verdict, Your Honor. You need to find him liable so that he understands this is not okay. Those 15 kids had to help their friend while he laid on the ground shaking. They had to call 911. And this coach doesn't understand that that was wrong. Find him liable.
Okay. The scoring judges will fill out their ballots now. We have been asked not to give you guys any feedback, which is a bummer because the scoring judges here, especially, are really brilliant attorneys, and I think you would have enjoyed their feedback. But you're not going to hear any feedback from us. I'd ask everybody to stay in the room until we're told that you guys can go. And I'd like to thank y'all for your flexibility and willingness to step up and try something new. I know this is a weird scenario. Tech is strange, and things didn't really work out 100% the way I'm sure you would have wished they'd worked out since this is new. But good job today. If y'all could just stand by until we're done.